Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Or in the case of this video, maybe you haven't yet started fighting that war against the Grey because you haven't actually gotten any Grey yet. By Grey, I mean plastic miniatures, unpainted models. Anyway, today we're going to try and help people answer the most difficult question and the most difficult thing to do in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and that is, what do you choose for your first army? Like, there is a lot to consider, and I know you'll get a lot of people that go and say certain things and ways you should choose your army and reasons you should do, but there is a lot more to consider than just some of the things that people throw around, I think, from time to time. There are certainly some things that are the most important things and all that, and we'll talk all about that. But I want to give some advice that I think may be useful for choosing your first army in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Now, I'm going to take the look at this from a brand new player to Wargames entirely. I'm going to take this as if you've never played any other war game, whether that be Warhammer 40k and other games by Games Workshop or other companies' games like Marvel Crisis Assault or whatever it's called. I forget the name. I know what it is, you know, the Star Wars games or anything like that. I'm going to take it that you've never played any of them, and so we're going to take a look at choosing your first army in a war game in general, and that you've chosen Age of Sigmar to be that war game. Of course, you could also apply this to many other factors if you're coming from another army or another game system, so let's get cracking on into the video. So, I alluded to a little bit of a statement that a lot of people make when people ask, what should I choose my first army? And for me, this is the most important rule when choosing your first army. This should override everything, and if you have any doubts, this thing should push through those doubts and help make your mind. If you're umming and ahhing, this should, between, you know, maybe two different things, this should be the thing that helps decide your final choice. And that most important rule is go for models you like. So there are a ton of different miniatures in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and it may be a particular model you like from one army, it may be a whole faction that you like every model from, but if you're umming and ahhing between 2, 3, 4, 5, however many options, if there's one that this model is just the thing you want more than anything, that is the army. And anything else I say in this video can be broken down and sort of made, I guess, the secondary opinion by just going, well, which one do I like the most, the look of? That's just something to get out of the way with the start of the video, and we're going to go look into some other things, talking about a whole bunch of different armies. And really, I don't think there's any bad armies to choose for your first army ever in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. There are some that are harder, maybe have a lot more things to learn about the game when you're doing, and I've done videos on this in the past about ones that are easy to paint, ones that are easy to learn the rules of once I've got low model count, and I've got more videos like this that will come out in the future, but I just think this one here is going to be a lot of generic information trying to help you choose your first army, and maybe if you've got some things in mind, you can go look at these other videos similar to it. Now, I did mention that we did a bunch of other videos on the channel, but this is really an important thing to do when going and picking your first army. It's important to research. A lot of the questions I'm going to talk about next are things you're going to have to research for yourself to find out if particular armies maybe fit the things that you want them to do or be for your Warhammer Age of Sigmar journey. So it is important that you go and research thoroughly before making that first jump. Once again, if there's models you like though, just go for them. So I guess the most important thing to consider is your personal budget. I know there's a bunch of different people that play Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and they come from all over the world, all in different parts of their lives and different places and everything. Budget is something important to consider. There may be people who have a lot of expendable cash and can buy whatever they want, but it's also worth considering that maybe you want to take steps and make this a much more affordable, steady process as well. Now, budget is definitely something important, and there are ways you can get Warhammer Age of Sigmar armies much cheaper. Not every army is able to be accessed at the same cheaper cost when you consider things like the starter set obviously has a lot of minis for a very low cost. In fact, it gets you 2 armies for a very low cost. or start collecting boxes, which are great bundle deals, Christmas battle forces that come out, and even the Warhammer second-hand market when you can find stuff on eBay or on buy swap sell groups on Facebook, or even ads on Gumtree and other things like that. All of this is just things you can do to help find your budget, and that is something important to find because it's worth getting into an army that you can afford. You don't want to get into an army that becomes just this massive expense that's just well out of your reach. Budgeting and figuring out something you can budget towards is definitely something very important. So if you're on a tighter budget, I strongly suggest maybe taking a look at armies that are included in either starter sets, maybe looking around at Christmas battle forces that come out, or the start collecting boxes. They're all fantastic ways to get into at a much cheaper cost. So, speaking of budget, something to consider especially is, well, your painting side, your hobby side, the model varieties, and old models that are in particular ranges. So painting is a major part of the hobby, and if you're looking to get into that, also just hobby in general, whether that be converting miniatures or building of the models and stuff like that, if that's what you're interested in, this is something to consider when picking your army, mainly because some armies have very limited either model ranges, some armies are not quite as fleshed out as others. There can be battle tomes where armies have, say, only 14 different unit options, while there's some that have well over 50. Old models are another one to really consider as well, as some armies that haven't been as updated as much in Warhammer Age of Sigmar tend to have a lot of fine cast and metal models, which don't really give you a lot of options for converting and hobby in those models particular, but maybe you could make use of some plastic kits to convert up your own versions of those models as well. So there are give and takes of that particular side of it, I guess. This is something worth considering, and especially links back to our budget part before, because a lot of old models that are metal and fine cast do generally tend to cost that little bit more, and because they're generally much smaller models that you get in, say, a pack or a blister or whatever you want to call them, you generally spend a lot more money trying to attain these models in unit sizes that you will require. But this is just all things to consider. If you're looking for a really cool army to paint as well, we've got a video up on the channel where you can find 5 easy armies to paint for beginner painters, and this is a good suggestion on some of them. Next up is picking an army and having a look at the armies, I guess, by choosing their playstyle. There are a ton of different armies in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and all of them do different things on the tabletop. A way of looking at this is maybe if you come from a fantasy universe sort of background, are there books you've read, or maybe you play D&D or something like that, is there a particular thing you like to do in games or you like to see in fantasy universes that you want to see replicated on the table? Do you perhaps like wizards and want to see your army cast lots of spells and magic across the table for Warhammer Age of Sigmar? Or are you much more about getting in your opponent's face and fighting them in close combat? Or would you rather shoot them from afar? All of these things are decent things to consider and worth putting in and just sort of thinking about when choosing your army, because there may be armies that don't particularly do what you want to do on the tabletop. I guess the last question to ask yourself is, how do you want to play Warhammer Age of Sigmar? Is this game just something where you're quite happy just to roll dice with friends and have a good old laugh? Is this maybe something where you're looking to recreate battles you've read about in the lore? Is this something where you're mainly just interested in painting the miniatures? Or is it something you're looking to get into the competitive scene for and play at tournaments and really aim to win most of your games? All of these things are things to consider, as there are armies that are technically, well, sometimes on the top of the meta, or armies that aren't quite as good and needing of an update. This is something to consider when choosing your army, because if you're looking to get into competitive Warhammer Age of Sigmar, there's definitely some armies that are lacking in that department, and you'll find it harder to get results in your games with. But all of this is just some thoughts and ideas of where to go starting your first Warhammer Age of Sigmar army. I hope you've all enjoyed this video and found at least some of it useful in helping you make up your mind in what is going to be your first army, or maybe your next army. If you did find this useful and you liked the video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you'd like to come chat with me more and other members of our fine community, you can do so by following the link in the description of the video down to our Discord server. Also, while you're on YouTube, please do go check out my featured channel section. There's a bunch of other fantastic Warhammer Age of Sigmar content creators there who you can go find a bunch of content ranging from tactical analysis to battle reports to narrative lore and painting videos and a whole bunch beside. Lastly though, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who supports the channel via Patreon and other financial means. Thank you to James, AJC, JC, Christian Weir, Philip Ward, Soren, Kenny Lowe, Alder and Shot First, Chaos Spawn and James Crowder. Thank you all so much for your support, guys. It means the world. If you'd like to help support like these fine people do, you can do so by following one of the many links down in the description of the video as well to go help support. Thank you all for watching once again though. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now.